Okay, well, it's 8 o'clock, so we will get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Yash Sabharwal. I'm your host today for the webinar on ICH and Pharma 4.0, the implications for Brazil. This will be the first in a series of webinars where we will be discussing a number of topics related to ICH and Pharma 4.0 going forward. As I said, my name is Yash Sabharwal. I'm your host today. I am the president and CEO at Cherry Circle Software. Prior to starting Cherry Circle Software, I was a co-founder and chief operating officer at Xeris Pharmaceuticals. During my time there, I was responsible for process development and manufacturing of our scale-up process. And it was at that time that we came up with the ideas for developing a software solution that can be used to help companies manage all the information generated during this process. So just to quickly review our agenda today, our keynote speaker will be Gustavo Santos. He will be talking about regulatory perspectives on ICH with the Brazil region in focus. This will be followed by a presentation on the current pharma landscape by Sana Ahmed, who is a client service specialist at Cherry Circle Software. And then after that, we'll have some time for questions and discussion with our esteemed discussion panel. We have a number of experts internationally that will be joining us along with our keynote speaker during the panel discussion. So we are very excited to have today as our keynote speaker, Gustavo Mendes. Mr. Mendes Lima Santos is a general manager of medicines and biological products at Anvisa Brazil. He is responsible for the management for drug and biological product registration, submission evaluation teams, authorization to conduct clinical trials in Brazil, and certification of bioequivalence centers. Mr. Mendes Lima Santos has been working at Anvisa Brazil since 2003, mostly with bioequivalence, biowaiver studies, and clinical trial evaluations. He is a pharmacist with a specialization in public health, and he also holds a master's degree in toxicology. Welcome, Gustavo.
Hello, everyone. This is a great opportunity for me to be here with you to share some of the regulatory perspectives. So I'm gonna share my screen with you. It's just a small presentation regarding what, in my perspective, are the regulatory challenges for quality by design approaches in Brazilian pharma industry. So, and I'm gonna start saying that the Brazilian scenario has changed from few years back to now, especially because of the regulatory convergence we are seeking in the recent years. We understand that Brazil now is a country and a market that has a relevance globally that is growing. And because of this, we usually have to be such specific requirements that are now, we are understanding that we have to see it globally. And that's why the regulatory convergence is now a perspective that we have reaching and we are seeking in this international forums. And I want to highlight two of this. One is the ICH, which is a main forum we are discussing today, and we understand that has brought us some of the perspectives for harmonization, especially when last year we were accepted in the management committee. A lot of expectations come to us regarding how we're going to treat regulations in Brazil. So that's why I'd like to highlight that we are in a new level on commitment on ICH. Also regarding PICs, we had a resolution. Resolution is our regulatory tools here, and that's why the resolution 301 of 2019 is a resolution that come to a new perspective on how we think and how we intend to put our Brazilian pharma industry in a global perspective. I'm sorry, some of the words are in Portuguese, but I'm be sure to make clear for all you, and I'll be happy to discuss if you have any doubts. So regarding ICH, so I mentioned that we had been accepted as a management committee member last year, and with this, I'd like to highlight some of the resolutions that we had committed to harmonize. And two of them are the resolution regarding stability, which is the resolution 318 of 2019, and also the changing in the documentation, in the format of documentation to be submitted to the Anvisa, which is the ICH-M4 guidance that we have also published. Regarding also the commitment we had when we went to the management committee is the continuous and progressive implementation of ICH guidances in Brazil, especially regarding quality guidances. And the ones that we have more impact on the subject today is the ICH Q8, R2, and also the ICH Q12. So that's why I would like to highlight those for you. Regarding ICH Q8, which is related to pharmaceutical development, the main change we have to see here is that basically in Brazil we had the situation where we have the quality by testing model, which limits the variability, especially regarding the specification of API and process and product. And the idea then, and the goal is to aim a quality by design approach, where we have a improvement of process and the efficiencies of processes and development, and a significant gain in quality with risk minimization. So just to picture you, so the aspect we have the change from a minimal approaches to enhancing quality by design approaches, which is right now is mainly empirical, and the developmental research often conduct one variability at a time. So the idea we have a multivariate understanding of the product and the process, mainly establishing a design space of variability on process and product specification, and PAT tools to be utilized. And that's why the main challenges in our perspective regarding ICH Q8 is the establishment of process analytical technology approach here in Brazil. We understand that this is the step we are seeking, and we are each day discussing with pharma industry to change the development process to more considering this process analytical technology approach. Also, definition of critical quality attributes and critical process parameters. This is the one thing that we are even more looking and expecting from the product that come for our reviews. But we know it's a way to go, and that's why we are discussing with industry how this can be implemented for new development of products. And also considering product improvements and understanding of the process in combination with quality risk management to establish an appropriate control strategy, which is the design space. So we understand that moving to a design space approach will also won't be only a good and more technical reasonable, but also in the regulatory perspective, when we have this established here in Brazil, we will minimize the number of submissions regarding post-approval changes, and the number of administrative charge and effort we are doing right now. So regarding Q12, also is the ICH guidance I'd like to highlight. So the Q12 also is one thing that I was mentioning, that it's a goal because of the number of submissions we have right now in the backlog, we have right now in Anvisa, because of the number of changes and because of the way the design, the development of products are being done, have been done since today. So with Q12, we understand that we're going to have a change in the actual model when we have a pre-specified post-approvals requirements that may consider the rigid parameters of quality of the drug, of the product, to a more flexible with the definition of established condition based in risk. That's the ideal. That's the goal we understand we have to reach. So just to illustrate this chart that is shared in the Q12, just to see how important the established condition may reduce the number of possible post-approval need to be prior evaluated by the regulatory agency. We understand that changing to this and with the established condition be very clear and scientific reasonably shown by us, we understand that this can be really improvement in the process we are having right now. And the main challenges are that we had to be an implementation of an effective risk management system to contribute to the definition of the established condition. The risk management system where we can easily understand why the established conditions are proposed to us in our review. Also, one thing we understand that is a challenge here is the using of modeling and simulations techniques here in Brazil to establish how we're gonna use these techniques and how we're gonna validate these techniques to convince us and to show scientific justification for the established condition proposal. And also the interface between registration assessment in Anvisa and inspection to verify changes in compliance with the established condition. This is a goal that we are doing, that we are reaching, because we know that registration assessment, market authorization assessment, and inspections have to be together and have to walk in the single approach by Anvisa for us to give confidence to us as regulatory authorities that things may change in the established condition without the need of always have to approve and review the information shared. Also, I'd like to highlight the Q13, which is not a guidance yet. Well, it's not an implemented guidance yet, and a finished guidance by ICH. But is this something that we are discussing? We are part of the Q13 expert group on ICH, which is related to continuous manufacturing, and we understand that the proposal model with this continuous manufacturing, with better efficiency, better agility, flexibility in manufacturing of APIs and medicines, it's a perspective we have, and that's why we are putting effort on discussing this, being part of the expert group there, and that's why I would like to highlight. But also there is some challenges, and the challenges are based because of the how new these concepts and these approaches are in the world. There are some challenges regarding harmonization of terminology and regulatory concepts. the definition of the scientific approach of this, and also adequate facilities of the Brazilian industrial park. To finish my talk, I'd like to highlight the resolution 301. So I was discussing with Marion before this meeting, and we spent almost 10 years in one resolution regarding GMP. So only last year we could come to a new proposal which is way more harmonized with the international expectations on GMP and all this concept of quality by design is stimulated by the resolution and in showing that it's a way to go in the Brazilian industry pharma. So the innovations regarding the life cycle in all aspects of GMP, inclusion of periodic product review and its minimum requirements, the need for establishing monitoring batches that have no deviation with risk in safety, efficacy, and product quality. Investigation, a robust investigation of deviation in order to avoid justification of human error, and the need for a quality agreement, mainly for productive and non-productive third parties. So this is the main innovation the resolution brought. But as I said, it's a way to go, and it highlights what the agency wants regarding this new goal of quality by design and what we expect for pharma industry in the future. So I think that was it. Thank you very much. I'm showing here just the web links where you can find all this information I'm sharing with you. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm happy to discuss with you any aspect you may understand it's necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gustavo. That was excellent, and really appreciate the nice summary that you provided. I'm sure the audience really appreciated that as well. So on to our next speaker. Sana Ahmed is a quality by design specialist for Cherry Circle Software, a young professional with industry experience in both pharmaceutical and cosmetic laboratories. She's actively participating in raising awareness of the quality by design framework as part of the Pharma 4.0 paradigm. Sana works with scientists who have little background in quality by design and want to optimize their processes, as well as get trained on quality by design principles in a practical manner. Since joining the QBD Vision team, Sana has created a client base within the UK and Europe with high engagement rate, as well as regularly hosting workshop sessions at her alma mater, the De Montfort University, where she initially obtained her master's in quality by design. Welcome, Sana.
Thank you, Yash, and thank you, Gustavo, for the talk. I'm just going to share my screen. I'm not actually able to share my screen. Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm Sana, and I'm the Quality by Design Scientist and Client Services Specialist at QBD Vision. And today I'm going to talk to you about QBD principles and how closely these align with the ICH guidelines. So quality by design is more than design of experiments. I often hear QBD being mistaken for DOE, and this is a huge misconception because design of experiments is just one part of the entire workflow. QBD is much broader, and it's broken down into phases as shown on the screen, and what phase you do your DOE in is particularly important. Quality by design was designed to help you manage your process development as required by ICH Q8, as Gustavo touched on, where you should start with the end in mind. and build process understanding and process control as you execute your development activities. And this is something that obviously can't be done with design of experiments alone. So once you've decided on your API and you've gained some product understanding, through these milestones, you can select your process and also begin designing it, as well as build quality into it in parallel, rather than at the end of the line, which is quality by testing. And this is where DOE comes into the picture. And so to summarize, DOE is an element of your QBD strategy, but not the only part of it. Next, so quality by design, the quality by design workflow is an enabler of Pharma 4.0. So I've provided a bigger picture of where DOE sits, but what about the big picture of where QBD sits? So the QBD phases that I'm going through align with the Pharma 4.0 initiative. The Pharma 4.0 initiative was defined and driven by the ISPE. And by using the QBD and ICH guidelines, the QBD principles and the ICH guidelines, along with the Pharma 4 enablers, your pharmaceutical company or organization will be well on its way to achieving the goals that were set out in Pharma 4.0, and we'll touch on those later. QBD is actually based on ICH guidelines from Q8 onwards and underpinned by ICH Q9 throughout. So by following this systematic workflow, you're also following the Pharma 4.0 principles. The ICH guidelines provide the principles of holistic QBD and guidance around QBD milestones in terms of the structure and content, and I'll touch on that now. So the first question is, how do you start off with gaining your product and process understanding, essentially the first few stages of the QBD workflow? And the answer to this is by beginning with the end in mind. The key here during these stages is intended performance. Q8 actually says that the development section should describe the knowledge that establishes that the type of dosage form selected and the formulation proposed are suitable for the intended use. And for us to know that information, we have to start with the patient in mind. And this is done with the creation or the revisit to a target product profile, or otherwise known as the product monograph. Q8 then further highlights the need for a manufacturing process to consistently deliver the intended performance of the product. So once your patient targets have been identified, quality targets to meet these must also be identified. The output of all of these milestones on the screen should be a solid product and process understanding. And then this understanding and all of the information and the data gathered around it is your knowledge space, which is the foundation for your operational design space. But before we move on to the operational design space, I'm going to explain the initial milestones in the understanding and development phases a little bit further. So the next question is, how do you start off with the patient in mind? And subsequently arrange quality into your process. And the tools for this are the TPP, or the product monograph, and the QTPP, the quality target product profile. The TPP is particularly important as you need to know product specifications to choose a process. And this approach then highlights the importance of starting with the patient in mind, as it allows you to address those quality, safety, and efficacy issues earlier on. So the deriving QTPP from the TPP is your product quality checklist or document. So essentially, here are all of the things in your product that will impact this particular patient attribute. For generics, the TPP or product monograph is known. And so the QTPP is built to meet it and provide you with CQAs as your output. Now, let's move on to what underpins all of this, which is risk. So you'll remember at the beginning that I mentioned that risk assessments are integrated throughout all of the QBD phases, as a risk-based approach is essentially a QBD approach. Risk is something that ICH Q9 dictates throughout the product lifecycle. And risk assessments following the QBD milestones that I showed allow for a systematic way of working, as it encourages timely risk assessments coupled with the DOE executions I touched on. The key here, though, is defining your risk management plan. And ICH Q9 again outlines a workflow for this that starts off with risk definition and identification all the way through to risk control. a well-defined risk management plan should tie back to the previously mentioned CQAs that you derived from your QTPP, meaning the information from both process risk assessments during the understanding and development phase can be used to control and optimize the process. At this stage, it's also really important to keep in mind that the right risk assessment and management tools can really streamline this process. For example, is the risk above an acceptable level, and are new risks being introduced as a result of the identified risks being controlled? ICHQ9 again encourages you to ask questions like this during your risk review and mitigation exercises. And so having the right tool to document, monitor, and track all of this information that can then quickly go into your regulatory submission reports is particularly useful, especially when it's something that's done throughout the product lifecycle. So once you're done with the initial risk assessment and your manufacturing process has been developed and optimized to meet the QTPP, you will have a solid understanding of your process in terms of your process parameters, your performance indicators, the established conditions, as Gustavo mentioned, as per ICHQ 12. So the visualization of this process definition is particularly important, as it should allow you to gain insight and see internally into your process so that you can easily show regulators what inputs affect which outputs and which ones of those are then critical. On the other hand, a lack of understanding of your process can lead to the creation of a control strategy that can't keep your system within its limits. In the pharma industry, it's quite common for process validation or process transfer to not work because of things like that. And that's why a methodological approach to achieving the QBD milestones is important to get to this stage of your process control and improvement. So ICHQ 12 actually mandates that you have post-approval change management protocols in place. And to do this, you need to know why, for example, one of your variables is critical. And this will be a challenging activity if you don't have any insight into your process. This is also where the use of tools, again, such as the knowledge graph on the screen, which is a risk map and allows you to see the story of your attribute, parameter, or requirement in terms of the cause and effect. So for example, what will this particular attribute or parameter impact upstream and downstream? Could it be the supplier of the material? Answers to these questions require multiple stakeholders and then a deep mining of the project information. As well as that, effective change management requires an insight into the iterative nature of the process. And this is because as your process evolves, your unit operations and formulation development is increasing in complexity, and therefore your risks are increasing. A lot of companies understand the importance of risk mitigation and control, but they tend to forget that this is something that should be brought in at the earliest possible stage, if not the idea or concept stage. One common and costly mistake is to begin employing quality by design tools once the output has failed due to unforeseen risks. This is a very retroactive approach and is generally quite costly in terms of time and money. A quality by design approach should ideally provide operational flexibility even behind the curtains, whilst keeping your system within its predefined limits. And so the ICH guidelines, the QBD workflow that I just went through, and digital maturity all come together to enable Pharma 4.0. At the start, I mentioned Pharma 4.0 goals, and the key piece to remember here is that the things on the bottom here in the green box are the new and enhanced enablers that focus on digitization for knowledge management and QRM activities. Everything on the upper left is the traditional way, and quality by design is a systematic process with well-defined stages that needs R&D teams to have on-time access to the knowledge that's being generated through each of these phases, and digital maturity is a key part of this. So to conclude, quality by design is a holistic approach to product lifecycle management and an enabler for the Pharma 4.0 initiative. The principles are described throughout the ICH guidelines that I highlighted, and these bring the concepts of process inputs and outputs, risk management, and quality attributes together. As well as that, doing these activities generates product and process understanding, which catalyzes your journey to a robust control strategy in line with the FDA's process validation guidance. And then finally, although the Brazilian market is geared to generic drugs, following these ICH guidelines, along with what Gustavo mentioned, will yield better quality at lower total cost. And that's it. So hopefully you've seen that QBD is a simple and effective enabler of Pharma 4.0 and a powerful tool to help you along in your journey. Thank you. I'd like to now pass it on to Yash to start the discussion panel.
Thank you, Sana. That was an excellent presentation. So in the two conversations that we just had, Gustavo gave us a very nice overview of how the ICH guidelines, as they're applied to the Brazil market, are intended to promote the new concepts of quality by design and bringing quality, moving away from the quality by testing paradigm. Sana did a nice job of giving us an overview of how all these elements of Pharma 4.0 and ICH and quality by design come together from the perspectives of workflow as you are moving through your development program. And now we have, we're going to move to our discussion panel. We have three additional guests today joining us, two from Europe and one locally in Brazil. And I want to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves, and we can start with some questions for the panel. So Mario, please introduce yourself today.
Hello, everybody. Thanks to attend the event. My name is Mario. I am working in pharmaceutical industry in the last 20 years. I am president of ISP Brazil, and I'm deeply involved in pharmaceutical industry, quality system, and computer system validation. And that's it.
Thank you. Lena, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Yes, my name is Lena Lonsberg. I'm a physicist, and I have a PhD in process analytical technology. So it was a pleasure to hear Gustavo talking about PAT and how that also will come into place now. So I've been working in the pharmaceutical industry ever since I finished my PhD, and working with quality by design, PAT, and also using these science and risk-based approaches for other topics such as process validation, tech transfer, particularly also defining the control strategy. And latest, I'm involved in Pharma 4.0 activities, particularly the validation, which is quite exciting how that's going to evolve. And I would also like to say that I've been involved together with the Montfort University defining their quality by design program. So thank you very much for inviting me to this panel.
Thank you for joining us today. Walkiria, please, thank you for joining our panel today. Please take a moment to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Yash, for inviting me. It's a pleasure. I'm Brazilian, so I could perhaps do half and half in Portuguese here. But I've been living in the UK for more than 25 years now, and I've been practicing QBD for more than 10 years within my teaching involvement and research projects at the university here in Leicester at the Montfort University. My main interest in terms of research is within the secondary continuous manufacturing and also inline quality monitoring by using PAT. And also I have, along the years, developed some interest in applying the tools like DOE and multivariate analysis for empirical models building and enhanced process understanding as you develop and you manufacture pharmaceutical products. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to start now with some questions for the panel. And if the audience has any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A option on the on your Zoom application to submit some questions. And if we have some time, we can get to those. Will you be pulling up the questions, Malia, on the presentation?
They're not. They're on your script, yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, very good. So the first question is, how does product quality, or how can product quality and patient safety be improved using ICH guidelines, Pharma 4.0, and quality by design? And so, you know, that's an interesting question. You know, quite sort of broad in scope. But Lena, maybe you could start us off today with some of your thoughts on this, and then the other panelists can jump in as well.
Yes, I will be happy to do that. So I think, first of all, it's very important to define the control strategy. And because of the control strategy, that's the most important element of Q8, ICH Q8, because that, at the end of the day, describes how you're going to make the products. But if you don't have a process understanding, you will end up in a scenario like we have today, where it's quality by testing. And as we know, that is not appropriate, because we do not test the entire batch. So that's why we need process understanding. And this process understanding is coming from this quality by design framework roadmap that we can use, and it helps us to define that control strategy, which is very important. So I think that's how it can help to bring products to market that's more safe and will be appropriate for patients.
Thank you. That's very insightful. We have a question from our audience, and maybe we can ask Mario to elaborate on this a little bit. Can you talk a little bit, Mario, about how you view the validation approach now under the Pharma 4.0 paradigm?
Yeah, well, most important, the validation, computer system validation life cycle does not change if it's Pharma 4.0 or not. Probably in the near future, we will have computer system assurance that will be a methodology more strong and more complete. And another very good methodology to apply to computer system validation in Pharma 4.0 is ASTM E5000 is very good methodology to do that. And the main point is now related to Pharma 5.0 is cloud computer. Then the methodology to qualify supplier or solution provider need to be very strong, need to be conducted in the early stages, because you have solution providers, softwares as a service, data center, communication, backup, and a lot of other services in the cloud. And the main point, management systems usually are installed in the computers, in the servers, virtual servers, in the automation and the equipments like clean utilities, process equipment. Usually these solutions are implemented in local servers or in local equipments, and probably will be transferred to data centers, to virtual servers, and there will be a lot of interfaces between ERPs, production system, and clean utility systems like HVAC, purified water. Then the interfaces between the management and the ground floor for the production plants will increase a lot in the future. Then the validation need to cover all of this.
Thank you, Mario.
All right.
That's very helpful. So, Walkiria, we had a question about what are some of the resources that are available for sort of beginning your journey to learn and understand more about quality by design and design of experiments. This question came through on Zoom, and I've already submitted the link to your book that the folks on attendees can take a look at. And maybe you'd like to talk about that a little bit more as well.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Yash. It is a good question. Where do you normally start if you've never done those kind of things? In terms of resources, there are a lot of material available for free. If you want anything more systematic and anything that has a more structure, yes, I would suggest that you do a course or a postgraduate certificate or diploma or a master course if that is what you want to do. In terms of DOE, everybody uses different. There are several softwares that are extremely good. I mean, I'm not here to advocate one against the other or to advertise any software. However, it is important that companies realize that this is an extremely important tool and you need access to some sort of software and start learning. For example, the software that we adopt for our course, there are many tutorials available from their own website, and this is across the board. Any manufacturer, software suppliers will do the same. There are very easy tutorials with examples that you can follow through, but equally there are courses that you can take from universities, and we have been doing this for more than 10 years now. So yes, my book is a good starting point, and also have a look at the courses that we offer at the Montfort, which really we were the first university that developed an integrated course that is delivered between us and industry. So there's a lot of expertise involved, and this is, I think, is a good starting point. Yeah, I hope that has covered part of the question or the question. I'm happy to
Thank you, Walkiria.
Afterwards.
So we have a question that I'd like to pose to Gustavo. Does Anvisa have any plan to run a pilot on Q12 in partnership with industry, as FDA did, to leverage the knowledge on this guideline?
Well, Flavia, that's a good question. I understand that this is a good approach, as we have seen in the international experience, to run pilots and to discuss with industry to leverage the knowledge on this guidance, and also to have a more feasible way to implement Q12, especially, which is quite of a change in the international perspective. I understand it's a good approach. We haven't established a procedure yet, but definitely this is a good suggestion.
So another question, just to follow up on that, is, the question that was posed was, unfortunately, the pharmaceutical industries in Brazil change their processes only when there is a regulation that requires it. How does Anvisa believe that companies will be convinced of the gains from the implementation of QBD processes without the explicit requirement of regulation? And before you answer that question, I would say that this is not a unique behavior just to Brazil. I think, in the United States and other areas, we see a similar sort of reluctance to change anything until regulations require it. But, one of the things that we are noticing being in the industry is that As pharmaceutical processes become more complex, it essentially really requires the use of this approach just to limit the amount of work you'll have to go through dealing with all the variability in your complex manufacturing process. But Gustavo, maybe you could elaborate on this as well. And I'll ask the other panelists to also comment on this just relative to their regions.
Well, I see that, and I believe that is absolutely true. Yeah, I see that's an international culture. I believe this, but in Brazil especially, we know that regulations have to be asking and requiring this information in order to stimulate this change. But you know, and we know in our experience, Anvisa is 20 years old, and I have personally experienced the change on the quality perspective with the publication of the generic law in Brazil, which is from '99. And I've seen that asking bioequivalence requirement, which is quite an improvement in safety and efficacy and also in quality of products. It took us more than 10 years to change the scenario in Brazil and to effectively say that we now have a situation where quality of the product is not a critical aspect. Also, we have improvements to do with this new perspective of quality by design, but it took us some time to change the scenario. And I believe that to change the scenario to the Pharma 4.0 and all of this, it will take us a time, but a very discussed and structured pathway in order to be feasible, to be reasonable. Because if we do a regulation that requires more than the industry is capable of, we know that the resolution will not be implemented well. So that's why we want to do this together with industry in order to be feasible.
Lina, would you like to comment on this topic?
Yes, please. Thank you for letting me doing that. Well, I think it's important that this should be a business decision to go down the quality by design route. It's not because regulators tell us to do that. Of course, that stimulates it, but it should be because it's the right thing to do. And if we look into other industries, that's what they do, and that's what they've done for many, many years. You could just, forget about COVID-19 right now, but I'm sure if the aviation industry were building airplanes in the same way that we are developing or designing airplanes the same way that we design pharmaceutical products, I'm sure none of us would be traveling. And to be honest, I'm not worried about a flight crash when I take a plane to cross a pond to the US or Brazil, but I would if it was done the same way we have done it. And I think so. It's a mindset, and that's why you have to work on this topic internally to try to understand how can you actually benefit your own industry and make it better for the patients, but also for the work environment and for those who owns the company.
Walkiria, would you like to comment?
Yes, this is, I totally agree with Lina. It needs to be a company-wide commitment, and normally it comes from the top. So without a backing of the management in realizing this has a positive contribution in terms of product understanding, process understanding, and particularly understanding sources of variability. So without that, really, you can't optimize or you can't improve anything. So you need to truly understand the sources of variabilities of your product and your process, where things are going to give you headaches and things will go wrong. And the tools that are embedded within the quality by design framework, such as DOE, is really a must. So all these, it mustn't be a regulatory kind of, they are asking you to do, but the company should, I totally agree, Lina, should want to do that because it's benefit to everyone, and particularly to the patients. So we mustn't forget, we are doing all these for the patient. And obviously, this is the central point. And I think from my point of view, the management, the cultural change, you have to, if your boss or your management group is not buying this idea, you have to find a way that you can tell them how you can improve process performance, and how you can understand the process, how you can control, and slowly this will change the culture. But it's very difficult to come from bottom up. It really needs to be a company decision, and that is the battle. So we've been doing this for more than 20 years, and it's still a long way to go, in my view.
Thank you, Walkiria. Mario, any thoughts from the computer system validation perspective?
Yes, to me, this increase the appliance of quality by design and ECH, it will be a natural path. And I totally agree with the business decision. There are a lot of competition. The companies need to be more efficient. They need to decrease the quality problem and the quality costs. And there are a lot of barriers ahead. Then at some point in maybe near future, they will need to implement this kind of tools, risk management, strong process to be more competitive, mainly in the generic industry. Then that will be the change, the culture change to be more efficient, more competitive, reduce costs. And if the management team do a very good return of investment evaluation or analysis, they will be convinced that
Yeah, so thank you all. I think one of the perspectives that we have is that it is currently challenging to manage the stream of work that you do for quality by design approaches. And I think the thought process for quite a while has been, well, we do our technical experimental work to learn about our process, and then we have a separate stream of work that we have to undertake to fit all this information within the quality by design sort of workflow. And actually they should be one and the same. And this is why the Pharma 4.0 approach includes, as one of its enablers, the need for more digitization and integration of digital information. So from our perspective, the development of digital tools and software solutions that help you manage all this information in a way that's already consistent with the quality by design, concepts, is something that we think can make the implementation of this approach easier and reduce the amount of burden, while also, automating essentially compliance with the data integrity standards and the other, regulatory requirements of ICH, as Sana, sort of reviewed in her presentation. And so, we think this will be really helpful in making that business case as well, that actually it's not as much work and actually will reduce the overall amount of time it takes to get a product to market while optimizing quality. So I think that's all of those pieces come together really to help companies move forward on this concept. Okay, our next question is about analytical quality by design. So Gustavo, this attendee would like to hear Anvisa's opinion about how the agency sees analytical quality by design, which is already being applied for analytical method development in some pharma companies in Brazil.
I'm sorry, Yash.
No, that's okay.
Can you repeat again, please?
Yes. So we have a question here about what is Anvisa's opinion on the analytical quality by design concept. I think this is something that's being sort of discussed in ICHQ 14. And some companies in Brazil are already applying this for their analytical method development. So this attendee would like to hear the Anvisa's opinion on this.
Of course, thank you. So we are also participating in the group that is discussing this guidances in ICH regarding changing in analytical development and analytical process. So our perspective is also to change to a future, in the future, to a new scenario where we can have a more approach that's more reasonable for analytical development. We have seen how challenging was to change the scenario for analytical development with the resolution 166. So it was a long journey to come to this new resolution where we updated the perspective on how analytical methods should be developed. And but we understand that was a good experience for us to change even more to a new scenario, more aligned with the expectations, ICH expectations, and what is the new perspectives on this analytical technology. Definitely is a thing that Anvisa is it's intending to discuss with industry.
Thank you. So we are coming to the end of our webinar. Thank you all for your time today. If there are any additional comments that the panel would like to make, please feel free to jump in at this point in time. So this was the first series, the first webinar in our series that we are developing with a number of international experts to cover not just the general concepts of ICH and quality by design, but also to cover how they apply and are being utilized in different regions around the world. So our next webinar will be scheduled in the next few weeks, and we'll be sure to let you know about the webinar and the topics that will be discussed at that time. Other than that, if there are any other questions, please feel free to send them along as time goes on. And we look forward to continuing the discussion with all of you and Anvisa as well as they begin their journey from a regulatory perspective on quality by design, and as all of you in the audience begin your journey with quality by design and ICH and Pharma 4.0 for your product development efforts. Thank you again and for your attendance, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you all to the panel also for excellent discussion and for your contributions. And to thank you, Gustavo, for your presentation, and Sana as well for your presentation, and Mario for your thoughts on these topics. And we look forward to continuing our discussion with all of you going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.